Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a few weeks since I've posted anything. I'm not gonna lie, the goings on in the world right now are taking a psychological and emotional toll on me. I don't want to make this a political channel, but I'm just gonna say one thing. I think what's going on in Ukraine is really terrible. I think those people really need help. I don't make any money from doing this. I don't have any sponsorship. I don't have any ad space, but I really would appreciate it. You know, this shouldn't be a partisan issue, but I'd really appreciate if you guys would consider checking out the link below there, making a donation, because the people of Ukraine really need our help. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that and just move on right now. Anyway, I wanted to talk about something that I get a lot of questions about, and it's a very dicey issue. It's a way after a lot of hard work that you can end up getting really hurt. It's also a way you can make good money. So that's distribution. I mean, distribution is tricky, particularly if you're starting out and you don't know the ropes yet. It can be close to devastating. I don't want to be dramatic, but I'm going to tell you guys a story about what not to do. This is back in 2008, 2009, and I just completed my first feature film. My partners and me, or my fellow film students, we went to AFM, which is the American Film Market. And that place is kind of like a feeding frenzy if you don't know what you're doing. There's a lot of sleazy kind of let's do lunch, predator type, slime balls there. A lot of good people too, but I mean, look, it just is what it is. They kind of see you. They know you're like deer in the headlights. You don't know what you're doing. And you may very well have a valuable piece of intellectual property that you worked really hard on, that you're very passionate about. That they see an opportunity to make money for themselves off of, not so much, and in this case, not at all you. So anyway, we went to AFM, and because of legal reasons, I can't mention the name Eamon Betty, aka Emilio Ferrari, aka D-bag, scumbag. So not going to mention his name, not going to say the name Eamon Betty ever again, not going to say the name of his company, Entertainment 7. Sure not going to reveal the name of the distributor in the situation, Barry Barnholtz of Barnholtz Entertainment. Not going to say his name at all, or the name of his company. Anyway, moving on from that. So basically, we met this guy calling himself Emilio Ferrari, really, charming dude. He wears sunglasses inside. Watch out for that. Major D-bag move, just walk away. Anyway, I'm only half kidding about that. You've got to be a real asshole to do that. Anyway, so we didn't understand the difference between a sales rep and a distributor. And this is something that a lot of young filmmakers can fall into this trap, because a lot of sales reps, sales agents, sales representatives will talk to you as if they're a distributor. Now, they don't quite say that in those words because it's always that legal fine print gray area. So it's basically they, will use words like, we're going to put your film out all over the world. And Mr. Betty, saw our pitch. We had a pitch deck, basically our screener, we had all that. And he was into the project. He said, okay, this is something I want. He sold us this line about how he was going to take the film all over the world, and all we had to do was sign with him. And all he would take is 25% plus a marketing cap. And I'm going to get to the marketing in a minute, but let's just start with that. So we're like, 25%, that sounds pretty fair. He's going to distribute our movie all over the world, and we're going to get 75%. That's great. Little do I know that this guy's not a distributor. He's a sales agent, and a crooked sales agent at that. There's nothing wrong with sales agents. There are many legitimate ones that you're going to need if you go international. Selling international is tricky. You may even need one domestically. There are good ones and there are bad ones. This guy's a bad one. But I don't even know if he's still in business. I don't think he is. But, watch out. If you see a guy, Emilio Ferrari, Eamon Betty, that's his real name, Entertainment 7, walk the other way, run the other way. He's he's a liar. Yeah, Eamon Betty, A-M-E-N-B-E-D-D-I. Yeah, don't write that down. So this guy basically pitched us this deal. We were going to get 75% our way, plus I think a $30,000 or $35,000 marketing cap, and not understanding that basically that $35,000 means money that he gets to spend to promote our project, and not understanding micro budget movies. This was our student film, not understanding what they're actually worth, particularly in the international marketplace. $35,000 didn't sound like a lot, even though that was basically the budget we shot the movie for, more or less. But, it seemed pretty reasonable. Well, this guy's going to be making up screeners. He's 4 major markets. He's going to be representing us in all the markets. So, okay, that makes sense. 35,000 market cap. Okay. he told us that he found a buyer who didn't want the film at all. Barry Barnholtz of Barnholtz Entertainment really hated the project, but because Mr. Betty had other projects that he really wanted, he was able to finagle his way in and get our film to come out through this company, Barnholtz Entertainment. What happened was we went down to the lab and we were trying to pass QC, which is very difficult, quality control. In your first film, this is the stuff they don't teach you in film school, how to pass quality control. So we were failing left and right. We had so many flags on the thing. We looked like the United Nations. Anyway, so during the process of this, the people at the lab were like, I've never seen this distributor more excited to get a hold of a title. I said, that's funny, because Mr. Betty said that he hated the project and that he only took it because he really wanted another film Mr. Betty had, and it was kind of like him pulling a favor for our behalf. So I called Mr. Betty and I said, Mr. Betty, that's a little strange. I mean, your information's not exactly checking out. Kind of first red flag. What's this guy pulling, right? Second red flag. Sunglasses inside. First red flag. Anyway, and then he denied that he ever told me that. And I'm like, you went on a pretty big tangent about how our film was terrible. The distributor didn't want it, but it was your great salesmanship and your basically packaging our film with one he did want got, twisted his arm. Anyway, we found out that Mr. Betty collected $20,000 from the pre-sale from Mr. Barnholtz. And I'm like, okay, well, 20 grand, first deal, that's not bad. I said, well, so let's get our 75%. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, 75% of the 20,000. And he's like, that's all me. That's just, that doesn't even cover my marketing fees. I'm like, you've had the film a few days. You're telling me you spent 20 grand in a few days on market fees? Kind of hard to believe, Mr. Betty, what'd you do? And he's like, read your contract, that kind of crap. He goes, but don't worry, when we get to the international market, we're going to make all this money. Now, again, Mr. Betty kind of told us that he was going to be putting the film out. We didn't know that he was essentially just a middleman. And then I said, well, let me look at the agreement that you signed on our behalf with Mr. Barnholtz. And the agreement was basically for $20,000 cash, we were going to assume, we were going to get 15% of the net. 15% of the net. Okay, what product can anyone put out that they can't write off 15% in expenses? That's not the gross, that's the net. Against $20,000, of which we never saw a penny because that all went to Mr. Betty. So essentially, we gave the film away for free. It gets worse, it was a SAG film, so the union came after us and made us pay, for the fact that we were getting ripped off. I don't want to let Mr. Barnholtz off the hook. I'll get back to him. I mean, technically the deal is between Mr. Betty and Mr. Barnholtz, not me, not us and Mr. Barnholtz, but that doesn't excuse his behavior either. So then Mr. Betty went out and he still had 20 grand. Okay, so we took our first 20 grand. He's only got to get to 30 or 35, whatever it is, and then we'll start to see something. So, the months go by, the different markets come up, and we don't get any reporting. We're supposed to get reporting every quarter. We get nothing. We hassle him for reporting. He doesn't give us any. And he says, basically, the film's not making any money. So this is a while ago, 2008, 2009. The internet isn't what it was today. But we started researching, and we would find, oh, no, there's a UK company that has the film. There's an Australian company that has the film. All these different territories were being licensed the product. He wasn't reporting to us. He probably surpassed that 35 grand, a while ago. And rather than give us a penny, again, he just wanted to take all the money for himself. He wouldn't report. He would deny it. I'd bring things to him like, what's this? This is an Australian company or whatever, an English company, a Russian company, whatever it was. And he would say, oh, news to me, or, oh, I guess I overlooked that. And then he would just give us some fake statement that said, he licensed it for $500 or something stupid. Anyway, this went on for a long time, fighting with this guy like crazy. Putting a lot of pressure on him, trying to go to Mr. Barnholtz, saying, Mr. Barnholtz, you're a fan of our work. I mean, we're getting really ripped off here from this deal. Is there anything that you can do? I know you don't have to, but just, if you like our work, we can make more money, we can make more movies, we can make more money. I even said, you can be our distributor, directly dealing with you, trying to do something to salvage the situation. Because we certainly didn't make this film for financial gain, but it felt really bad being taken advantage of this way by these two guys who were taking advantage of kids in their 20s who just didn't know better. So Mr. Barnholtz was not willing to do anything, but I'm going to keep some confidence here, but I'll just say that I did find out how much our movie was making. And this is, you got to remember, this is back in the day of the brick and mortar video stores. It was making a lot. It probably made more money, or it's probably one of my top 2 or 3 earners ever. For a micro budget independent movie, it was a blockbuster, for a micro budget film. It was well over $1 million, getting close to $2 million for something that, anyway, pisses me off still to this day to talk about it. Eventually, after hassling Mr. Betty a lot and giving him, going after him as much as I could, I mean, I didn't have any money for an attorney. Obviously, that was kind of the first problem. We didn't have any representation doing this deal. Eventually, he just kind of agreed to give us the film back, give us the rights back, and I was trying to say, okay, well, we can salvage something. If I can find out what territories are still available internationally, maybe I can sign with a different sales agent, maybe, something can be salvaged in the situation. And not to mention, now that Mr. Betty's out of the picture, Mr. Barnholtz is accountable to me. So that starts my battle with Mr. Barnholtz directly. He can no longer hide behind Mr. Betty. Step in the right direction. He starts ducking me. He won't answer my phone calls. So I just finally just go down to his office. I mean, I had it with this guy. I've had it with both of these guys. We went down to Mr. Betty's office, but lo and behold, he was never there. And if you looked at it, it looked like no one had been there in a very long time. Mr. Barnholtz actually had a brick and mortar office, though, and they did answer the door. They threatened to call the police on us. Well, you're calling the police because you're not returning our calls. And, you get the picture, right? Started following this up with a lot of emails, threatening legal action, which was a bluff. I didn't have any money for legal action. And then his attorney contacted me saying, you're harassing my clients and I order you to stop. And I'm like, what? Are you a judge? You have no authority to order anything. So that's another thing, guys. If you run into these smarmy assholes and they're short sleeve attorneys, don't be intimidated. He's like, I'm an officer of the court. I'm like, you're a lawyer. You have no more power to order me to do anything than I have to order anyone to do anything. It's ridiculous. Shut up. Don't be intimidated by them. They're paper tigers. For one thing, they're guilty as hell of violating their contract 6 ways to Sunday. They're not going to sue you. They're not going to take you to court. They don't want the discovery process. It's all a bunch of crap. And don't be intimidated by them. Again, this lawfare, people are so afraid. Anybody can sue anybody. Yeah, I mean, to a point, that's true. But first of all, if you don't have any money, you got nothing to lose. What are they going to do? Write you a strongly worded letter? Even if you do have assets, there's ways to protect them. I'm just saying, these lawyers are scumbags. And I basically laid into this lawyer. I'm like, you're something else. And then he's like, what do you say? Well, I advise you. So now you're giving me legal advice. Isn't that like against the rules for you to give me and Mr. Barnholtz legal advice? So getting worked up. Well, then he goes, well, I'm not giving you legal advice. Well, you just said in writing that you would advise me. Anyway, so they called back and they offered me some bullshit money. I forget what it was. It was very little. And I'm like, I'm not accepting that bullshit amount of money. I want all the books. I want everything opened. I want to know what we're owed. Even out of this 15% that is terribly criminal and we had to absorb all the expenses out of the 15%. Even at that point, the movie had made so much that we still should have seen something. And basically, they ended up sending me a check for a few $1,000, which I was like, I didn't even want to cash it. Because I'm like, am I cashing it? Am I admitting that that's all they owe me? I'm like, no, fuck that. I'm going to cash the damn check. And I took the money and gave it to SAG so I could at least owe SAG less money. I was like, no, if I can collect the dime, I'm going to take it. And I'll deduct that against what I'm actually owed. But I didn't sign anything to the effect of, I accept this as final payment. So I'm like, I'll just take their stupid money and, whatever. Basically, as the years went by, I kind of had to move on and, develop new relationships and certainly develop new distribution relationships. I just wasn't in a position to really fight these men. And that's something that, of course, they know. They know that when they see you at AFM walking around with a movie in your hands right out of film school, they know you're fresh meat, so to speak. And there are companies out there. I only have this experience with these 2 companies, but I've heard horror stories from other independent filmmakers. It's really important that you know who you're doing business with. And today you live in the information age, so you have a huge leg up on us. Back in our day, you Google search and there was a lot of this fake press. Like people could really buy placement and kind of easily like erase any negative, or at least bury anything negative that might have been written about them, to make them seem, first of all, more legitimate than they were, but also that they were really honest guys. Like Mr. Betty had all these, he used to pay Variety and other rags to like, write these glowing stories on them. And it's like, okay, if you're paying for positive press, I mean, what does that say about you? Like I said, you live and you learn. But today, you guys, you got IMDb Pro. It's $15. Get that. Anybody wants your movie, any sales rep, any distributor, contact the last 3 producers. Don't ask for references because they're going to give you the references they want to give. Go and say, anonymously, don't tell them you're doing this. What was your experience with Joe Blow Blow? And, some people might not want to get involved legally, but they're not going to tell you it was great if it wasn't. If they say no comment, take that as what it is. They suck. Now, in fairness to distributors, there's often... filmmakers have unrealistic expectations about their movies too. So I'll get to that in a moment. This isn't all on distributors, but the thing that you have to understand, whether the movie makes money or not, is the distributor reporting as they're supposed to. Usually it's quarterly. Often people will see the numbers and they'll say, well, I think the movie is going to make, well, you can't base that on your opinion. I'll tell you the first thing, a lot of people look at their movies and they say, well, geez, this movie only made $5,000 this whole quarter, and that's way too little. It's like, what are you basing that on? I hate to tell you, but particularly in the days of streaming, that's not that uncommon, particularly for a really small movie. So that doesn't mean your distributor's shorting you. That could just mean that's what your movie's making. Pay attention to market caps. Because of this, though, because the revenue it's really hit or miss. It kind of trickles in over time. Pay very much attention. Market fees should be capped at no more than $15,000, and you got to define what those market fees are. If you can get a gross deal, better still, get what's called a minimum guarantee advance that at least goes part of the way to making you whole again, where a distributor will give you an advance to obtain the license. I mean, keep in mind, guys, distributors need us as much as we need them. But basically just be, it doesn't just come down to your contract, because a contract with a criminal is not worth the paper it's printed on, frankly, unless you have the money to enforce it. Even then, like Mr. Betty, he was living under assumed names. He was a very shady guy. He was, basically an organized criminal. What are you going to do? Even if you had all the money to sue the guy and you got a judgment, it would be worth nothing. You'd never collect on it. He'd disappear into some other country or zip code or whatever. So be, the best way to protect yourself. Yes, you need an attorney. You need to look at the fine print. You need to mitigate, okay, how much are you going to charge in market fees? What's my cut? If you're not going to get a gross deal, which I push you to try to get a gross deal, even if it's substantially less than the net deal, I'd rather have 10% of the gross than 90% of the net any day and twice on Sunday, particularly if the market fees are, the market cap is even 15, 20,000. Just know the person. I've been very lucky that after this horrible experience, I met Keith Leopard of Uncorked Entertainment, and I've been with him ever since, and it's not hard to figure out. I've had other people try to get me to go with him. I'm like, I don't know you. You're offering a better rate, or you're offering this, or you're offering that. I don't know you. I'm not going to risk it. I don't have the resources to go through some long legal battle trying to take you on to get what's mine, only to find out you might very well be a fraud. I don't know. No offense. I don't know you. I'm not saying you are. But in this space, on this very low, low budget range, there's a lot of predators. I can't overstate that enough. And often they'll set the market cap at what they think the movie's going to gross. That's an old trick. So they'll be like, 50,000 in marketing fees. I need 50,000. Really basically projecting that that's what they're going to make through exploitation, selling every territory. Nobody sells every territory, but between the US and the international market. So essentially you're giving a film away for free. Worse, if it's a SAG movie, the distributors are making money. You're not making anything, but you're going to have to pay the actors their percentage out of your cut, which is zero. So you're literally giving away. You're losing money from having distribution. Again, all this is avoidable if you understand your contract. If you can't afford an attorney, I'm offering this to any filmmaker. I'm not qualified to give legal advice, but I do know the few areas that you really need to look out for in a contract. I've offered this service to every independent filmmaker, and I'm probably putting myself in some legal jeopardy by doing it, but I don't care. I will at least underline a few things. I'll take a look at your contract, because it's just like, I hate these guys. I hate these predators. Full disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to say I can catch everything, but I do know like some red flags. And I can underline those, an exclamation point, and say, do not sign this deal if X, Y, or Z. I'm not saying there's not other tricks that I'm not aware of. So if you can, don't rely on me, get a lawyer, but I'm willing to help if I can. And I actually have, over the years, found stuff in people's deals. I said, don't. And I said, make him take that out. If he doesn't take that out, walk. And the distributor wasn't willing to take it out, meaning the distributor was planning on pulling a fast one. So also understanding the difference between a sales agent and a distributor is very important. A sales agent is a middleman, not always a bad thing. Sometimes middlemen, they're a necessity. They have that's their job, is to market your film. They have the relationships. It's sometimes what you have to do, particularly on the international front. But if you can, try to avoid that, at least for domestic. Try to find, if you want to find a good distributor, look at similar films to yours and who's putting them out. Like, again, I can't say enough good things about Uncorked Entertainment. Every one of my movies I've done has been released, since my first one, has been released through them because I get treated well. But I'm sure there's other good companies too, but again, the best thing you can do, look at the last 3 movies, look at the last 4 movies, see how other filmmakers have been treated. Another topic that we should cover is self-distribution, which a lot of people are rightly tempted to do. I've never heard of it working in a way that actually makes you money. It sounds great, but distribution is kind of hard, and it's also very contingent on relationships. After what happened with Barnholtz and Betty, my second movie, Uncorked wasn't doing international sales yet, so I basically was going to be my own international sales agent, and it worked. I went on the internet, again, went on IMDb Pro. I found similar titles, similar budget range, and who was putting those out in Germany, UK, Ukraine, you name it, whatever. And then I would just contact those companies and send them a trailer, and it worked. But it was a very long process, and yes, I got 100% of the revenue, but I think it's like you have to decide: do you want to be a distributor, do you want to be a sales agent, or do you want to be a producer? Because you can't do it all. Eventually you're going to have to, I think, find someone to handle that for you. But on the domestic front, if you're lucky, that won't be the case. On the domestic front, you hopefully will be dealing just with the distributor without a middleman. Therefore, the distributor can't use the middleman to insulate himself. You're also not absorbing middleman fees. So win-win. There's plenty of boutique distributors out there that will do that, will deal directly with filmmakers. Be leery of some of the bigger companies out there. A lot of filmmakers I don't mean the bigger companies themselves, they're fine, but what I mean is, let's just say a sales agent approaches you and says, well, I got to deal with Lionsgate. And your wheels start turning because you're like, wow, Lionsgate release, well, that's impressive. Everybody knows Lionsgate. The problem is you don't know who that middleman is. You could literally end up losing money on that deal. I'd rather be with a smaller distributor who's got a good track record because, again, keep in mind, your deal is not with Lionsgate. Your deal is with the middleman. And this has happened. I remember a few years ago, probably more than that, a decade or so ago, there was this thing called 8 Films to Die For. 8 films put out every year under some company that had a deal with Lionsgate, and a lot of those filmmakers got nothing. So, again, a big company like Lionsgate, it's probably not about that life, about stealing from little guys. I don't think they would bother stealing our revenue. But it's not them you're dealing with. So that smarmy middleman, yeah, he's all about that. And getting back to self-distribution, though, I don't know. I've not seen it work for anyone really. But I know that there was kind of this middle ground of like certain companies that I won't mention only because I'm not clear on the facts, but definitely were accused of underreporting. They were kind of like an aggregate to self-distribution. But that they were pocketing it. And again, I don't know. I'm not going to say their name because I can't prove one way or another whether they're innocent or not. But yeah, self-distribution, honestly, for the most part, in my opinion, it's going to get people to, like, the same people that would buy your crowdfund, buy a perk on your crowdfund, meaning like your grandma and, your brother and your neighbor are probably the ones who are going to buy your movie on Amazon or something if you don't go through a legitimate distributor. So keep that in mind, guys, because the distributors still have a role in this. They also know the market. Usually they're going to design artwork that's going to work. Have you ever seen anybody self-distributed artwork? I mean, it's pretty bad. And again, Amazon pays very little. I don't know exactly what the rate is now, but I know it's even lower than it was. So maybe that's what you have if you go through all the your film's been out a while and you've just not been able to find a US distributor who's willing to put it out, or at least one that you can trust, maybe self-distribution is good, but it should be your last resort, in my opinion. And if anyone out there has better information on that, prove me wrong, I'm happy to hear it. But that's been my experience. I've not heard it working. Not saying it doesn't, but I've been in this business a long time. I've never heard about anybody making good money doing it. Anyway, happy to be proven wrong on that, though. So, all right, guys, talking about the positives of distribution and working with a good distributor. It's building a relationship of trust. It's building a relationship of mutual benefit. They need you, you need them. Hopefully, if it's an ongoing partnership like it has been with me and Uncorked, another thing that you can kind of add to the plus category is I'm able to pre-sell my films. So that is a way to finance them, which is excellent. So I have to raise less money, or sometimes no money independently, or have to risk less of my own money, or none of my own money, which is nice, kind of, because not every film works, of course. And everything's very transparent. I get my checks, I get my reports every quarter, and it's gone on that way for over a decade now. Which is why, as long as I'm making small micro-budget movies, I'm not looking for anyone else. And hopefully you guys can build that kind of relationship. Again, keep your expectations reasonable. Today, particularly without physical sales, you can do really good on streaming, you can do really good on digital, or you can do next to nothing. Also, like, a film can come out and for 2 years be basically a dud, and then all of a sudden take off, particularly in the international market. That'll happen. So distribution's it's a crucial part of the process, but it's just important to be thorough, do your homework, and again, just because you do everything right as far as from a business perspective, and who you deal with, doesn't mean you're going to make money, but at least you have a shot. If you're dealing with a con artist, you have no shot. And yeah, just keep in mind that no matter how much money you make someone else, there are people out there that literally could care less about completely ripping you off. And honestly, this sounds so stupid, but at the time when I was like 20-something years old, I didn't realize that there were people that rotten. I was like, no. I mean, somebody might not give you what they should per your agreement, but they wouldn't steal everything. Yeah, they will. Yes, they will. There are psychopaths out there that 99.9% is not enough. And they'll feel that they got ripped off if they pay you 0.1%. So be careful. Screw those guys. I'm going home. Talk to you soon. Peace.